Hello, it's Shereen. This is day 5, and I'm going to call this video Be Prepared. So, yesterday I spoke about the, I guess, power of vulnerability in reaching out to your Black employees. So, you want to prepare yourself for the emotions that you're going to feel when you're sitting, relatively speaking. I know it's all remote these days, but when you're sitting in front of an employee who is maybe going to start telling you some things that you thought you knew, right? Because you're thinking to yourself, well, I've been watching Shereen's videos, so I'm kind of prepared. I know some of the things that might come up, like, if they mention slavery, I'm prepared. If they mention imperialism, systematic inequalities, so you might think that you're prepared because you've heard the terms. But everyone has a really unique experience. So there are some similarities. So for some people, some of the things that I've shared has been a mirror reflection of their experience, but not everybody. So when I talk about listening with an intent to hear, this next part in terms of be prepared is also just physically and mentally just taking a deep breath when your natural instinct is to just recoil and because some of the things that your employees might share might have nothing to do with you. So to some extent, it's difficult to hear, but it's not challenging any of your perceptions of the world. So if they're talking about their history, they're talking about their parents, they're talking about their childhood or their community, because everyone will share in different ways. You can listen, you can empathize, but fundamentally, it's not going to change your view. It's not going to challenge your view of the world necessarily. Where things get a little bit tricky is if they start talking about behaviors that exist within your organization. They might talk to you about situations they've been in, conversations they've overheard, where they have been made to feel inferior. They might tell you about situations where they've been ignored or alternatively always singled out. They might talk to you about situations where other colleagues, managers, clients have exhibited racist or discriminatory behaviour and it has been proven and no one did anything. When I say no one did anything, I mean you might have gone through some semblance of a performance management or disciplinary, but fundamentally nothing happened to the employee, the director who said whatever or did whatever. Because at the moment, when you're, I mean, you've seen my videos, so like when I'm pissed off, there's a carefreeness sometimes in the sharing because you just think, sod it, like I'm annoyed anyway, so I'm just going to tell it like it is. So this silence, this corporate wall of silence that I've been talking about has potentially meant that some of your employees might still be upset, but because of the time that's moved on, they might also start feeling angry because it's like what's the 9 stages of grief? So you have to be prepared for what you're going to hear and still hold on to being in listening mode, even though your like natural inclination is to be like, no, 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 it didn't, or try and justify it, try and explain it, or almost dig deep for more information because that's about you trying to find something that you can then say to the employee, but that's not true. Because one of the things I am encouraging, and I know there's some people who have already said to me, like Shereen, all this stuff you're doing is great, um, but directors are not going to want to hear this. because they're going to be really worried about what some black employees are going to share. And if the black employees are going to share, they're worried about what the other employees are going to share, because it's a little bit like, I likened it to a little bit like the Me Too movement, because nobody was saying anything really. And then when one person said something and the second person said, oh, suddenly everyone's got something to say. So you have got to be prepared for what you're going to hear, and don't seek to jump in to try and fix it, justify it, explain it, reason with it. And then the other part is you also have to be like prepared for your own emotions, because there are some people who genuinely, until they saw my video, they genuinely had no idea how deep this ran. Genuinely had no idea. And in the same way that I was very conscious as an individual that, my silence over 17 years of my HR career has meant there was never an opportunity to really fix anything, because the solutions in place never address the root cause. So I'm thinking about, if I had spoken up sooner, I know everything has its time, but if I'd spoken up sooner, maybe some things might have been different, you know? So that's why in all my videos, I'm always very honest about, some of my reflections. This is not about, you non-black people, you white people, no, this is not about that. Because there has to be some honest reflections on both sides. I've been saying the same thing to black people, in that you have to use your voice if you want this to get better, and to use your voice, which means you have to speak some of the things that has been ingrained in us that we don't talk about with anybody outside of our community. So in that same way, you're going to go through the same process, because you're going to be thinking about all the situations that maybe you should have said something and you didn't, or you made a decision, or you made a choice, because sometimes this is about a choice, and you chose a path which meant you kept reinforcing this position that black people have been in the world of work, where we never progress, where we never feel like we got our voice just really heard. No, I just don't really mean like talking day to day, I mean really heard. And there's shame that comes with that. There's guilt, there's anxiety, and your natural reaction is to try and put it onto other people. I'm not racist. I would never treat anybody like that. I don't see colour. I don't. That's where all of that sort of stuff comes from, because you're trying to distance yourself to say that must be somebody, that's like that person over there. That's not me. So, that's why yesterday I was talking about, reflection is a good thing because it moves you from point A to B. It was my reflections that moved me from a place of being sat at home feeling ridiculously annoyed, upset, and hurt, to then thinking about what can I do. So I've been very mindful of my emotions, and I guess my situation is slightly different because I have to come on video every day, which means you get to see sometimes you can see it in my face when I'm really tired. So, I've had a little bit of sleep, done a little bit of meditating today. So listen to some very loud hip hop music. So, my energy levels have been restored. But not all of your employees are going to be in that space. Not all of your employees are going to be able to articulate clearly what's going on in their head, because we're having to undo years of conditioning that says we don't speak about this, not really, because we're still really fearful of the repercussions. So understand the fear hasn't gone away just because I'm being really honest and talking about what's going on. The fear is still there. So that's why this kind of prepare yourself for your emotions, prepare yourself for maybe how you might inadvertently act, prepare yourself for what you're going to hear.